This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend. The end of all the elaborate plans. The end of everything that stands. The end, no say.
Hi, I'm kind of like I guess an atheist from birth. I was raised in a very fundamental Christian home, and I just never really believed. It just never, the whole thing, even at like 5 years old, just was completely ludicrous to me. And so I'm kind of wondering, from fellow atheists, if you were theists at one point, how did you arrive at your current conclusions, that kind of thing?
I was raised in the Church of Christ from as far back as I can remember, and probably battled with belief like in my early teens, finally accepted it in my late teens, held on to it through half of college, finally started to run into information that contradicted what I had been told about, like canon origins and things of that nature. And when I began to research it in order to actually refute the claims I was running up against, what I found is that what I had been taught was incorrect, and that the actual teachings were that this was an unreliable set of documents, and that it's just nothing that I believed held water. I held on to theism after that, but of course left the church at that point, realizing that the Bible was not trustworthy and that it was just simply put together by a bunch of people. And I went on to study multitudes of religions, took anthropology while I was in college, including anthropology of religion, studied human communication, inter- and interpersonal communication, began to learn more and more about how people think, how people communicate, and that has a lot to do with, in my mind, the religious messages and how people interpret them versus how they're expressed. Finally came to the idea that I had to figure out what it was I was calling God in order for the statement, I believe in God, to make any sense at all. And when I tried to define God, I finally came up with the idea that the only thing that to me made sense was that God was everything, in which case it was the universe. Thought I might be a pantheist for all of a week, and then realized I was an atheist. That's the short version. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Charity.
Oh, well, I think I kind of explained mine briefly earlier, but basically, originally, I began to doubt my faith out of rebellion because I was kept in a sheltered household and not taught anything else. So when I realized there was other things, I kind of was mad that I didn't get to know any of it and went straight into the occult. But then realizing, actually, it's probably the occult that drove me to atheism, because a lot of it was, frankly, quite ridiculous. And I apologize to all you pagans out there, Wiccans, Satanists, whatnot, but it sickened me. And I went to research a whole bunch of religions and came upon the idea that divinity couldn't be a specific person thing. That, I mean, the idea of divinity was so broad and so controversial that it's just no argument could really make sense with itself, that it was probably better that God probably either didn't exist or did exist as a universal, ubiquitous, uncaring power that may or may not exist. It just...
Can I ask you a question about your personal journey? Did you run up against, like, philosophy, like trying to define things such as, what am I calling existence? What is the nature of existence? What is...
I didn't question existence as much as I did divinity. Like, I read a lot on Greek philosophy. The Epicureans, I loved them. Basically, how could God be defined? I mean, who was it? And then looking at religions throughout history and how God was also manipulated through politics, through philosophy, and that God seemed to either not interact with the people or just not be what we conceived divinity to be.
Okay.
So.
I always say my story is the most boring one here.
Oh.
My parents are both physicists, or both have physics degrees anyway. And my father is a strong atheist, and my mother is sort of non-committal Jew. I say non-committal. She did a lot of the ceremonies and rituals. I had a bar mitzvah, but she never strongly pushed the God angle, and so my father won. So, you know, I'm an atheist by default. I tried to investigate the claims of religion sometime around college just to see, basically like the last caller said, what if I'm wrong? So I tried to figure out a way to make it testable because, you know, I was raised in a scientific household, couldn't come up with anything useful, and, you know, stayed an atheist. So that's it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that was really cool. It was great finding more about your personal experiences. I love that. That's great. Thanks.
Okay.
Well, good. Thank you.
Thank you for calling.
This is the end. Beautiful